Hey kids, welcome to Unit 4, Lesson 7 of the math class exercise number 1. We're going to find a documentation for the math class in the Doc and Tips tab. Then we're going to take a look at the official documentation for the math class on the Java API website. And we're going to use all of this to complete the math class activity guide from code.org. We're going to jump back and forth between all of that and this screen right here to learn a little more about the math class. How do we get to the math class in Doc and Tips? Well, if we go over to documentation here, and if we go down towards the bottom, you will see the math class. It'll pop up in this screen. But if that's a little small for you to see, you can click on this button. This will open up code.org's Java Lab documentation. You can also find it by going to JavaLang and clicking on the Math tab. If we take a look at code.org's documentation, we have what the math class does. And what does the math class do? It provides methods to perform various math calculations. This includes things like the square root, absolute value, and hypotheses, as well as many other operations. Code.org's is not the exclusive list. It's just what you're probably most likely going to see on the APCSA exam or FRQ questions. That's going to be absolute values, square roots, the random method, and the power method. If we go to the Java API website, you'll see how many more methods there are out there. Here's the official documentation for the math class. I highly recommend that you read through this, try to understand it the best you can. While this is what code.org's best guess is what's going to be on the exam, they can really ask anything within the math class. What are field summaries? These are typically public and protected fields of a class. Since it's good practice, the Java has mutable fields that are usually private. It's usually just good consistency that these are documented. Those two are E and Pi. And then we have all of the methods in the math class. And you can see there are quite a few of them. After that, we have an explanation of what they do. And again, kids, please take a moment, read through some of these, and at least have the understandings of all of the things that Java can do and the math functions built into the class. Let's head over to our worksheet and see the questions we have to answer. What types of methods does the math class contain? Well, we saw that on code.org's documentation. The math class provides methods to perform various math calculations. The math class contains methods for performing basic numeric math functions. All of the methods of the math class are, let's again look at the Java API. If I scroll down, you'll see each of the method as static in the front of it. That means each method is static, and the math class methods belong to the class, not the object. Let's go ahead and write that down. All methods of the math class are static. What are two static double variables contained within the math class? Let's go back to the Java API. You can see we have 2e, which is the double value that is closer than any other to e, the base of the natural logarithm, and pi, the double value that is closer than any other to pi, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. So those are our two static variables. Let's go ahead and write that down. We have static double e, double value close to e, the base of natural logarithms. Spelled that wrong there, kids, no surprise. We also have static double pi That's the double value close to pi, the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Find the documentation for Math Random. What does it do? Let's head to code.org's documentation. Math Random returns a random value that is greater than or equal to 0 and less than 1.0. That means when you call the Math Random, you're calling their RNG that's going to give you a number between 0.0 and 1. So that would be numbers like 0.8, 0.325, 0.95. Let's go ahead and write that down. This returns a double value with a positive sign greater than or equal to 0.0 and less than 1.0. Let's clean this up. Find the documentation for math.abs.AA and math.abs.NA. What do they do? How are they different? Well, let's head over to code.org's documentation. Double ABS returns a double absolute value. That'll give us a decimal number. ABS int gives us an absolute integer. So one will return the absolute decimal, one will return the absolute integer. Let's go ahead and write that down. Returns the absolute value of their argument. One takes a double value, the other takes an integer value. Oh, we got a spelling error. There we go. We can see this back at code.org. Let's copy math ABS AA, Control C, head over to code.org. Let's do a system.out.println, and let's paste our method in here. We need to put a double value. Let's do negative 3.3. When I hit run, I should get positive 3.3 down here. And I do. Let's see if we just do a negative 3, if we get an integer value. We should get 3 pop up down here. We do. So the math.abs return either a double or integer depending on what you input. Let's head back to our worksheet. Find the documentation for math square root. What does it do? Let's go to code.org's documentation. Here you can see it returns the square root of a number, and it will always be positive and correctly rounded. Let's go write that down. It returns the correctly rounded positive square root of a double number or value. Let's go ahead and test this math square root out. Let's copy our method signature, head over to code. Let's go ahead and paste our method into our print statement. We need to put a double in. Let's find the square root of 9.0. Well, that should give us 3.0. It's a double because we're going to get a long decimal for most numbers. Let's hit run and see if I'm right. I am. So math square root is just giving you the square root of a number. Let's head back to our worksheet. Find the documentation for MathPow. What does it do? Let's head over to code.org's documentation. Pow returns the argument raised to the power of the second argument. So this is just a base and exponent method. Let's go ahead and write that down. Returns the result of A raised to the power of B. Let's clean that up. Let's go ahead and copy this method header and test it out on code.org. We can copy this in our print statement And we need two doubles. So let's do 2.0 and 2.0. Well, that should give us 4.0 in our statement down here. Let's hit run and see if we're right. And we're right. POW is just exponents. Let's go ahead and finish off our worksheet. Choose one additional math method, write the method signature and what it does. For this one, we're going to have to head over to the Math API and find one. Let's go take a look. Over here, if we start scrolling down, we have a whole list of all of the methods we can do, and below that, how to use them. Let's take a look at an easy one. Let's find max. This returns the value that is greater of two int values. So I can actually just copy this and paste it into our document. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's paste that in. Let's clean this up a little. Move this over. Let's go ahead and test this out. Let's copy the method signature and head over to code.org. Let's go ahead and paste this into our print statement. What I want you to know, kids, when you do copy this over, you still need to call the class, that is the math class, and we're calling the max method. We need two numbers. Well, let's put 25 and 35. When I hit run, I should get 35 print off down here. Well, let's see if I'm right, kids. I do. So that just finds the max between two values. Probably very helpful in coding. Key takeaway from this lesson, kids, is understanding what the math class is and how to use it. It is a static method. That means you can call methods directly. Overall, the math class does basic numeric functions. I really recommend that you take a minute and look through it. The one thing I do want to point out is these videos and lessons are not going to be 100% comprehensive for the CSA exam or the FRQ. This is code.org's best guess on the type of questions they're going to ask you. And for this lesson, they're going to cover absolute, powers, square root, and exponents. The next couple lessons are going to reinforce some of the math class skills. Understanding the math class is vital to being successful on the CSA multiple choice exam, but also the FRQ written questions. Please, kids, take a minute, read through the API documentation. Hopefully, kids, this video helped you understand the math class a little better. As always, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next lesson. See you later, kids. Bye.